What's good, YouTubers and YouTubettes? This is JBsports back again with another one. As the boxing world found out yesterday, Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder 3 is off. And since that announcement by Bob Arum and Frank Warren, the promoters of the Gypsy King, Tyson Fury, people have done a lot of videos. People have printed out a lot of articles stating the reasons why this fight is not taking place. And I'm going to debunk many of those reasons why the fight didn't take place and give you the reason why this fight is not taking place. And it comes like a phrase to me. If it ain't making dollars, it ain't making sense. Let me repeat myself. If it ain't making dollars, it ain't making sense. And that's what it boiled down to, ladies and gentlemen. And that's the sole reason why this fight is not taking place. They can't do the fight. They don't want to do the fight without a crowd. See, the last fight did $17.5 million live gate. And that was a lot of money. And that paid and covered a lot of people's pockets. Lined up a lot of people's pockets. That's $17.5 million. And the promoters of both fighters, not only, I'm not saying one fighter's team or the other fighter's team is the sole reason why this fight not taking place. I'm saying both teams are not willing to take a significant pay cut in order for this fight to take place. See, you got to understand, there's been pay-per-view fights going on since the pandemic has started. It ain't like ain't been no pay-per-view fights. Let's go to a couple of weeks ago. The Charlo twins did their first pay-per-view fight. And guess what? They had no fans. They did that fight on pay-per-view. And the Charlo twins, along with the other fighters on that card, got their purses, got their money. But they wouldn't have got that type of money if that fight would have took place with a crowd and on pay-per-view. They would have got a significantly higher purses. All the fighters that were involved in that pay-per-view bill would have got significant higher purses if the fight would have been able to take place in front of a live crowd. And that's the problem with Team Wilder and Team Fury. Neither one of those fighters or their teams were willing to take that type of pay cut, because this fight could actually got made, in September or October, if the truth be told. See, the fight was originally supposed to take place July 18th. That was supposed to be the fight of the third. That was supposed to be the date of the third fight. It got pushed back to October due to the bicep injury of Deontay Wilder. So once it got pushed back to October 3rd, we had the pandemic going on. And Bob Arum did a whole lot of interviews and made a whole lot of statements saying that, it's going to be hard to do this fight without a live gate. It's going to be very hard to do this fight without a live gate. That's why you heard Bob Arum talk about Macau, China, putting together some money to stage that fight there. Because Macau, China was going to pay him a huge site fee, and that would have covered some of the money that they could potentially lose without having fans from the live gate. And Macau, China, who is not having the same problems with the pandemic, or was the same reported problems with the pandemic as the United States had at that time, was discussing the possibility of staging that fight in front of fans also. So they was going to give Bob Arum a huge site fee, along with the PBC, Al Heyman, and them, a big, huge site fee. And then they was going to be able to put that fight over there in front of a live crowd. But due to the ever-changing events due to this pandemic, you got different nations dealing with different cases and different spikes happening at different times. I think that what happened was they had a huge surge of coronavirus cases in that part of the world, in Macau, China. A lot of that stuff is not getting reported. See, people think the United States is the #1 COVID reported cases in the world. I don't think that's true. I think they're reporting their numbers, so they're the highest numbers getting reported because they're actually reporting factual numbers. China numbers is propaganda. They have way more cases in the United States. They got 1 billion people that live in China. Way more people living in China than live in the United States. And you mean to tell me that's where the pandemic was born? You mean to tell me they got fewer cases than the United States? No. You can miss me with that. That's not the case. So they're having problems over there in Macau, China. So they're not able to put on an event with a live crowd. So they said we'll revisit this in 2021, in the first quarter of 2021, and we'll see where we're at with this pandemic. And if we've got it under control, maybe we have a vaccine, we will, talk about the possibility of staging that fight over there in 2021, not in the end of 2020. So that put a kibosh on Fury Wilder taking place in Macau, China. Now they start talking about, this is where I'm going to make my point right here. Now they started talking about staging this fight in Allegiant Stadium. That's the new home of the Las Vegas Raiders. But if you were paying attention, you would have heard the Las Vegas Raiders owner, Mark Davis, the son of the late great owner Al Davis, just win, baby. A commitment to excellence. That was some of the phrases that have been attributed to that once great franchise. Mark Davis said that we are not going to have any crowd for our 8 home games for this 2020 season. He said we're not going to have any crowds, no crowds. Like some NFL teams, they're having limited capacities at their stadium. But the Oakland Raiders owner said we're not going to have no crowds this year, no home crowds this year, as we battle and try to get control of this deadly disease known as the coronavirus. Now, why would the owner of the Las Vegas Raiders, the number one tenant at Allegiant Stadium, the reason why that stadium was built was to house and be the home of the Las Vegas Raiders, why would they not allow fans in any of their 8 home games, but allow a limited amount of fans for a Wilder Fury 3 to take place in the same stadium in a sport that's less popular than football? Made no sense, people. It made no sense, people. Now follow me. That's why all this talk about December 19th and a fight taking place in Allegiant Stadium, the home of the Las Vegas Raiders, was nothing but bullshit. What nothing but propaganda. It was nothing but smoke and mirrors. They was never going to fight in Las Vegas on December 19th because the Raiders owner already told you that we were not going to have any fans in the stadium for any of our 8 home games. Damn if we're going to have some fans for a Wilder Fury 3 fight in the same stadium in a sport that's less popular than ours. And we're the number one tenant there. We're not going to have no fans. Nobody going to have no fans. So that's why I'm telling you that Wilder and Fury, both of their teams should have been willing way back in September. Should have been talking about and discussing and having internal conversations about having this fight with no fans. Putting it on pay-per-view. Wilder, you got to take a pay cut. Tyson Fury, you got to take a pay cut. It was said that both fighters made in excess of $25 million for their rematch this past February. They was going to have to take a pay cut, ladies and gentlemen. They were going to have to take at least half that. You promote the hell out of the third fight. Both fighters have a mouthpiece. Both guys are very charismatic. You sell the hell out of that fight. You do a 24/7 all access. You do a face-to-face. You do all that. You bring up all that. You bring up the loaded gloves. You bring up the water might have been spiked. You bring up the fact that Wilder got rid of his number one trainer, Mark Breland, because he threw in the flag and he told his team, no matter what's going on in this fight, no matter the circumstance, don't you ever throw in that white flag. Don't you ever wave that white flag. Don't you ever throw in that towel. You could have talked about all that. You could have talked about Fury being a dope fiend, Fury being depressed, Fury being down and out, Fury being 300 pounds, Fury being the abominable snowman, big as he was, Fury being the Goodyear blimp, Fury overcoming all that, Fury being the lineal champion, and Fury being the first guy to end Klitschko reign. And you could have marketed that fight as the #1 heavyweight in the division deciding fight, and sold the hell out of that fight and asked both fighters to take half of what they made in that second fight. And this fight could have still took place this year. But neither team was willing to take that pay cut. Neither team was willing to sacrifice that live gate. So what's happening now is you're hearing a lot of different reasons why this fight did not take place. But I'm telling you right now here, ladies and gentlemen, that the reason why the fight did not take place was because of the live gate that was going to be lost if the fight would have took place with no fans. And neither fighter or his team was willing to take a significant pay cut for this fight to take place, ladies and gentlemen. That's why the fight didn't take place. That's why the fight's not taking place. Now, both guys, in my opinion, should have been a little bit smarter, because what's going to happen now is Fury's going to go fight on December the 5th against a lesser-known fighter. He's going to make his money, but he still would have made more money fighting Wilder on a pay-per-view with no fans. Wilder's going to fight, what I'm hearing, he's going to fight Robert Helenius next. You'll see that fight next for Wilder. You know, whether it be on Fox or less likely Fox pay-per-view. He's going to fight Robert Helenius next, and he's not going to make as much money as he would have made fighting Tyson Fury on a pay-per-view, even with no fans. He's going to make less than he would have made fighting Tyson Fury on a pay-per-view with no fans. The Charlo twins just did a Showtime pay-per-view with no fans. They could have had that fight in September and put it on then. But now you let the contract expire, which was expiring in the month of October. But they're having conflicting dates. Some say it expires on October 9th. Other news outlets are saying it expires on October 15th. So evidently, it must be October the 9th, because they're already saying it's already expired. Here we is, today is October the 13th. So I'm going to go with the report saying that the contract expired on October 9th. And that's why we're here today, ladies and gentlemen, in this situation where we're not going to get the third fight, and they're pushing towards a unification matchup, which won't be undisputed like a lot of people reporting. They're pushing a unification matchup between Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, because if Joshua defeats Kubrat Pulev and Fury wins his next fight on December 5th, and they fight next, it won't be for the undisputed, because the WBA has already said they're going to mandate that the Alexander Usyk, assuming that he gets through Derek Chisora on October 31st, if he wins that fight, he will be the mandatory to fight Anthony Joshua. If Anthony Joshua doesn't fight him, he will be stripped of the WBO heavyweight title. If that's the case, that fight won't be for undisputed. But that's a belt. It still won't matter. Whoever wins that fight between Fury and Joshua will be recognized #1 heavyweight in the division. But that's the reason why this fight's not taking place. If both camps would have been willing to put this fight on pay-per-view without a crowd, this fight could have took place in September. This fight probably could have took place before the Charlo twins pay-per-view fight that took place in September. But they wasn't willing to do that. And here we are today with both fighters going in different directions. Now, I'm just here to let you guys know the real reason why Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury 3 is not happening. It has nothing to do with ESPN and Fox refusing to put on the fight on December 19th because they've got 5 college football conference championship games and 2 NFL games. That's the reason why. That's pretty much after the fact. You know, that's the reason why. Now, as we sit here today, that is the reason why, but that's after the fact. The bottom line is that both teams would have been willing to fight on pay-per-view with no fans. This fight could have took place in September or before. I know it got pushed back from July to October. They could have fought in late September or early October. This fight, we could be talking about this fight taking place this weekend, actually, or this past weekend. It could have took place in late September or early October. Easy. If both camps would have been willing to fight on pay-per-view with no fans and take a significant pay cut and look at the big picture, because whoever win that fight, you take a little less now, but whoever would have win that fight would have been sitting in the catbird seat in negotiations with Anthony Joshua. They would have been able to command at least a 50-50 deal. As I do know that Fury and Joshua have basically agreed to a 50-50 deal. But whoever would have won this fight would have made that fight that much bigger. And both fighters on a 50-50 deal would have probably made at least $50+ million apiece for the winner of this fight versus Anthony Joshua for #1 supremacy in the heavyweight division. Let me know what you think in the comment section about Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury. The real reason why this fight did not get made, it had nothing to do with the dates and ESPN and Fox turning it down in favor of college football games in the NFL. It had all the things and had all the reasons to do with both fighters were not willing to take a significant pay cut to make the fight happen on pay-per-view without fans during this coronavirus pandemic that has gripped this whole nation. Let me know what you think in the comment section. This is JB Sports, the man, the myth, the legend. Holla.